Growing up as an albino girl in India was absolutely horrible. My parents were poor basket makers who saw me less as their daughter and more as a bad omen and a punishment from God. My dad often talked about selling me to the circus, which gave me many nightmares because I didn't want to be put in a cage like an animal and be poked with sticks by mean little kids. But then, my dad had an even worse idea. He sent me out to beg on the streets. My white skin got me a lot of attention, and so people were more willing to give me a donation. However, albinos like me get sunburned really easily. Just a few minutes out in the sun makes my skin blister and peel off. Even wearing a large hat only gave me limited protection from the sun, which meant I almost always had a severe sunburn around my hands or feet. Meanwhile, people would stop their day to take a look at me and often also taunt me. A woman once gave me some weird-looking food. I thanked her and took a small bite, but it tasted horrible and I spit it out again. The woman started laughing when she saw my disgusted face, and only then I realized that she'd given me dog food. I guess she got a kick out of degrading me. Oh, and all the money I earned while begging? I had to give it to my dad. It took me several years to build up the courage to tell him that I had had enough and I wanted to go to school to get an education. However, going to school turned out to be even worse. All my classmates knew that I had been a street beggar, and they ruthlessly made fun of me and treated me like a complete outcast. The only person that seemed to like me was Sajid, who was from a higher caste than me. We often went on dates after school, but when his mom found out that her son was seeing a poor, lower caste girl like me, she hired another poor girl to make Sajid fall out of love with me. This girl was much sexier than me, with big breasts and a pretty face. Sajid told me that this girl would wait all night in front of his room, and when he opened the door in the morning, she would always act like a submissive slave and ask, "Good morning, master. Is there anything I could do for you?" That's all Sajid ever told me. I don't know if he ever let her come into his bed and got intimate with her. But whenever Sajid left his house, the girl would follow him, even when he was on dates with me. We were out eating dinner when she sat down at our table, took Sajid's hand and kissed it in a very submissive way. I screamed at her to go away, but all she said was, "See you later in bed, Sajid." I couldn't believe the audacity this girl had. But then again, that's what Sajid's parents were paying her money for, to drive a wedge into our relationship. Well, the next day, Sajid told me that this girl had come into his room at night and just started kissing him. He told me that at first he thought he was dreaming, and so he made out with her for a couple of minutes. Knowing that he had had his first kiss with this whore instead of me completely broke my heart. But it gets worse. A week later, my dad came up to me and screamed, "You have to immediately break up with Sajid or I will lose my job. Sajid's parents have offered my boss in the basket factory a large sum of money to fire me, and the only way I can keep my job is if you break up with Sajid today." Of course I wanted my dad to keep his job. How else could he feed our family? But then I remembered how, for so many years, he had sent me out in the streets and forced me to beg. I still resented him for that. So instead of breaking up with Sajid, we ran away together to another city. We both found work at a carpet factory, but Sajid had grown up rich and upper class, so he wasn't really used to hard manual labor. When a supervisor caught him daydreaming one time, Sajid got hit with a stick and was spit on his head. Then Sajid stood up, turned around and knocked the supervisor out with a single punch. He then turned to me and said, "I hate this life. Working from dusk till dawn, 6 days a week. I'm sorry, but I'm going back home to my family." Then he walked out and left me behind, all on my own. For a while, I kept working at the factory, even though it wasn't safe. My albino skin made me stand out, and the other men kept staring at me as if they couldn't wait to put their hands on me. I guess I looked exotic to them, and they knew I no longer had a boyfriend to protect from them. Then one day, my fat and ugly-looking boss asked me out for dinner. I politely declined his offer, but he didn't like being rejected and told me I either went out with him or I was fired from my job. I told him, "Fine, go fire me, but first give me my salary for this month." No. I can only pay out a salary if someone works a full month. I'm sorry, but in this case, you will get nothing. Yeah, life isn't easy when you're poor and living in a third world country. Without your family, you have no one who takes care of you. Luckily, my parents let me move back in with them, even though my dad had lost his old job because I had run away with Sajid. But there was still one problem. I had just found out that I was pregnant. I thought about telling Sajid about our baby, but I was scared that his parents would force me to get an abortion. That's why I waited until I had given birth before I called Sajid and told him he was a father. He came to the hospital screaming, "You filthy girl! My family had already arranged a marriage for me with another girl, and it's too late to cancel the wedding now." Oh, really? And what about becoming a responsible father? Is it too late for that too? If you don't support us, then your son will grow up poor, just like me. Oh, it is a son? The next day, he invited me to his parents' house. I sat down with his mother, and I could tell that she was furious. She pointed at me and told Sajid, "This whore got pregnant by some street beggar. Son, it's not your child." "Mom, I hate her just as much as you do, but it's still my child. I know it." They started screaming at each other until my baby started crying. Then Sajid's mom turned to us and screamed, "Shut up!" at my baby and ripped it out of my arms. I tried to get it back, but she was bigger and stronger than me. Meanwhile, Sajid just watched and did nothing. Out of sheer desperation, I ran outside the house to find help. I found a policeman nearby and took him with me to confront Sajid's mom. However, she just smiled, pulled out a big stack of cash and offered it to the policeman. He was reaching for it, and in the last attempt to get my baby back, I fell on my knees and I begged the policeman to help me find my baby. Luckily, he had a change of heart. He rejected the bribe, and together we searched the house until we found my son hidden in a small drawer. He was healthy and asleep. Afterward, Sajid never contacted me again. He wants nothing to do with me or his son. That's why I'm a poor single mom. My parents' income wasn't enough to feed my baby, so I had to become a beggar again. I kind of enjoyed it though, holding my baby in my left arm and an English textbook in my right. That's how I tried to educate myself. Sajid's parents once sent a thug to kidnap my son and take him away from me. But luckily, I had a knife on me, something every beggar girl needs to defend herself in India. You wouldn't believe how many creeps will approach you and offer to let you sleep in their home. They all act super friendly, but I knew better. I also knew that it wouldn't be long before the thug came back. So I moved to another city. There I slept in a women's shelter at night and begged and studied during the day. It took me 4 years of studying to reach the highest English proficiency level, C2. With these skills, I was able to become an assistant teacher in a private elementary school, making $500 a month. Most of the students were the kids of ambassadors and international businessmen. They were all super spoiled, and I once saw a kid scream at her mom, "You promised you'd give me 1 lakh rupees for the weekend." 1 lakh is more than $1,000, by the way. Her mom responded, "Yes, and I gave you 1 lakh yesterday. Have you forgotten?" "But I already spent it, so now I have nothing left for the weekend." I don't want to talk bad about rich people though. The mother of one of my students, Asavri, really liked me and asked me to move in with them as a 24/7 caretaker for their daughter. They offered me a $700 salary, so I accepted, and I was allowed to bring my son too. They had a big pool, and when I went inside, Asavri said, "Why are you so boring? Don't you like waves?" She pushed on a button and the freaking swimming pool started creating waves. I liked the girl, despite how spoiled she was. One time she complained to her mom that she wanted to sit beside her best friend during classes. The school had refused her request at first, but when her mom offered a big donation, they quickly changed their mind. However, once Asavri turns 18, I will no longer be needed in their house as a caretaker, and I will have to move out again. I just hope my son won't mind going back to living in poverty.